السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رسولا ونبيا. Picking up from page number 244, the era of Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan, the Prophet ﷺ's legendary military empire. After completing a total of 14 videos, this would be the 15th, I believe. We've also covered a total of 69 videos, the era of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, the Prophet ﷺ's legendary government military legacy, and a total of 50 videos, the era of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the Prophet ﷺ's legendary military career. Is another total of 30 videos, which is the Prophet ﷺ's legendary military career, and his legendary military legacy is the era of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. However, 10.5.21 suspension of the bankrupt from business dealings. Uthman ibn Affan held that a bankrupt person should be suspended from dealing with his or her wealth, divided among the creditors according to, divided among the creditors according to what was owed to each. If any creditor found some of the very same goods that they had previously sold to the bankrupt individual, they had the right to annul the trade and take the goods before anybody else did. 10.5.22 Prohibition of hoarding. Uthman ibn Affan used to forbid hoarding commodities, and it seems he was just like Umar ibn al-Khattab in that manner. He did not see any difference between hoarding food and hoarding other things. 10.5.23 Wandering camels. Malik narrates that he heard Ashihab say, during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, camels in the wilderness used to roam freely and reproduce. No one would touch them. However, during his Khalifa, Uthman ordered that they be announced as lost property, after which they were sold. If the owners of any camels came to reclaim their property thereafter, they were given their value in wealth. The reason behind this ruling seems to be their preservation, either as they are or in the form of their value in money, which are both good. Abdus Salam al-Sulaymani suggests there is no doubt that with his action Uthman aimed for the public interest. He realized that leaving the camels as they were and had been from the time of the Prophet ﷺ to the time of Umar ibn Khattab would jeopardize them. The once selfless conduct of people had changed, and they were now reaching for these wandering camels. Thus, he deemed it best to prevent them from this, and this was undoubtedly a sound and benefiting conclusion. 10.5.24 Letting the wife inherit if her husband divorced her while on his deathbed. Abdurrahman ibn Auf divorced his wife while he was sick, and Uthman allowed her to inherit from him after her iddah. It has been narrated that Shuraih wrote to Umar ibn al-Khattab about a man who had divorced his wife 3 times while he was sick. He replied, instructing them that she should inherit from him as long as she was in her iddah, but after that there would be no inheritance for her. Umar and Uthman radiallahu anhuma agreed that a couple's divorce on the husband's deathbed does not mean that their relationship had ended in a way that renders her ineligible to inherit. However, Umar fixed a term within which the wife could inherit, while Uthman did not. He ruled that she would inherit whether it was during the waiting period or after it. The ruling does not have a legal text to support it, and as such it is subject to expert interpretation. However, it can be reasoned that it prevents some husbands from divorcing their wives on their deathbeds in an attempt to prevent them from inheriting from them. 10.5.24 Inheritance when a man dies while his wife is in her waiting period. Uthman ibn Affan ruled if one of the two spouses dies before the third menses of the divorce, the other spouse inherits from the deceased one. It should be noted that a lengthy iddah does not prevent a divorce from inheritance. This refers to the one who menstruates once or twice and then her period stops for a long time. For example, Habban ibn Munqiyah divorced his wife while he was healthy and she was suckling his daughter. As a result of what she did not menstruate for 17 months, 7 or 8 months after the divorce, Habban became sick. He was told, "Your wife shall inherit from you." He said, "Carry me to Uthman." They carried him and he explained the situation. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Zayd ibn Thabit were present with him. He asked, "What do you think?" They replied, "We say that she will inherit from him if he dies, and he will inherit from her if she dies. She is not a woman past her childbearing age who no longer menstruates, nor is she a virgin who has not yet menstruated. Her iddah lasts as long as her menses last, whether they are short or long." Habban returned home and took his daughter. Not suckling anyone, his wife menstruated twice, and then before her third period, Habban died. She now began the iddah of a widow and inherited from her husband Habban ibn Munqidh after it ended. 10.5.26 Inheritance of a child carried by a female prisoner. If a non-Muslim woman is taken as prisoner of war and she has with her a child whom she says is her own, she should not be believed, and the child cannot inherit from her until she can prove that the child is indeed hers. Uthman consulted the companions of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding this, and each gave his respective opinion. After which Uthman said, "We hold that we should not let anyone inherit the wealth of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu except with proof." He also said, "Children carried by prisoners do not inherit unless with proof." These were some of the legal conclusions of Dunuraini radiallahu anhu, the light of the owner of the two lights, that played a key role in the judicial establishment in areas of prescribed retaliation, legal penalties, injurious crimes, and disciplinary actions. With these expert legal interpretations that demonstrates his vast acquaintance, abundant knowledge, and deep insight into and understanding of the aims of this wonderful system, he contributed to the development of the Islamic schools of law. After all, he was one of the righteously guided caliphs from whose deeds the Muslimin Ummah continued to derive guidance in its long path of aiding and giving honor to the religion of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Moving along now to the various conquests during the time of Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan. The death of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab encouraged the enemies of al-Islam, especially those in Persia and Byzantium, to attempt to reconquer the land they had lost to the Muslimin. The king of Persia, Yazdagird, began to make plans in Fergana, the capital of Samarkand, where he resided. The Byzantine leader left Syria and moved to Constantinople, the capital of Byzantium. The remainder of the Byzantine army was located. The remainder of the Byzantine army was located in Alexandria, Egypt, where they had been entrenched in the era of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Umar ibn As sought permission from Uthman to conquer it, though it was well fortified with catapults on its walls. Heraclius was determined to fight in this battle himself, and not one Byzantine soldier was going to lag behind, for Alexandria was their last stronghold. Consequently, the Byzantines of Alexandria assembled and they began looking for ways to reclaim their past rule over it. This led them to break their peace treaty with the Muslimin, in which they had been helped by the Byzantine navy, which had sent them 300 ships, all carrying men and weapons. Uthman faced this challenge in a determined and resolute manner, as illustrated by the following actions. Number 1, subduing the Persian and Byzantine rebels and restoring the Islamic rule in these lands. Number 2, continuing the jihad and conquest in other lands in order to cut any aid coming from them. Number 3, establishing military bases where the Muslimin stayed in order to guard the lands of Al-Islam. Number 4, establishing a navy force because the army direly needed it. The main military bases and the strongholds of the Muslim army in the time of Uthman bin Affan were the capitals of the major areas. The bases of Iraq were Kufa and Basra, the base of Syria after it had fallen completely under Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan was Damascus. The base of Egypt was Fustat. The bases protected the Muslim state and continued the conquest and spread of al-Islam. Uthman conquest in the east, 11.1 conquest from Kufa, Azerbaijan in 24 years after the Hijriya. The people of Kufa invaded Rai and Azerbaijan with 10,000 soldiers guarding them, 6,000 in Azerbaijan and 4,000 in Rai. The army of Kufa comprised of 40,000 mujahideen, of which 4,000 mujahideen joined the force every year. This meant that everyone had to partake in military activity every 4 years. When Uthman handed Kufa to Al-Walid ibn Uqba, the people of Azerbaijan broke their treaty. They refused to pay what they had promised to Hudayfa ibn al-Yamam during the time of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab in return for peace. Instead, they rebelled against their governor Uqba ibn Farqad. Consequently, Uthman commanded Al-Walid to fight them. He prepared his commander Salman ibn Rabi'a al-Bahili and sent him ahead with a group of mujahideen, and then he followed with a group of people himself. The people of Azerbaijan hurried to him, requesting that he make peace with them for the amount on which they had agreed with Hudayfa ibn in the past. Al-Walid agreed and took their pledges, after which he sent the units to raid the surrounding areas. He sent Abdullah ibn Subayl as Al-Ahmasi with 4,000 mujahideen to the people of Muqan, the Berbers of Taylasan. He took some spoils and prisoners, but they managed to flee. After this, he sent Salman Salman al-Bahili with 12,000 mujahideen to Armenia. He subdued them and returned with abundant spoils. After that, Al-Walid went back to Kufa. The people of Azerbaijan rebelled more than once, though. Hence, the governor Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais wrote to Al-Walid ibn Uqba, who sent him an army from Kufa. Al-Ash'ath pursued the rebels, which resulted in their utter defeat. They sought a treaty, and he agreed on the terms of their first contract. Fearing that they would rebel once more, he appointed Arab guards to prevent this and to invite people to al-Islam, fixing their salaries and recording their names in the account books. When Sa'id ibn al-As became the governor, these people returned to their old habits and rebelled once again. He sent Jarir ibn Abdullah al-Bajali, who ended up defeating them and killing their leader. The situation became stable after most of its people embraced al-Islam and learned the Quran. Uthman ordered Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, the governor of Kufa, to send an army to the people of Rai, who had proven to be rebellious. In response, he sent Qurayda ibn Ka'b al-Ansari, who reclaimed it for the Muslimin. 11.2 help from Kufa to prevent the Byzantines' preparations. Once Al-Walid ibn Uqba had finished his job in Azerbaijan, and returned to Mosul. He received a letter from the Caliph Osman which read, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan has written to me and informed me that the Byzantines have prepared a great army in order to wage a war against the Muslimin. I have decided that their brothers from Kufa should help them. Therefore, when this letter reaches you, send 8, 9, or 10,000 men under a man with whose aid intrep or and excuse me, whose aid, intrepidness, bravery, and Islam you are satisfied. Intrepidness, peace be with you. Al-Walid arose to speak to the people after praising Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, O people. He says, Allah has truly given something wonderful to the Muslimin in this area by returning to them their lands whose residents had apostatized, opening new lands that had not yet been conquered, and bringing them back unharmed with spoils and a great reward. All praise is for Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, the Lord of the worlds. The commander of the faithful has written to me, ordering me to gather 8 to 10,000 men from amongst you who would go and help your brothers in Syria against the Byzantine army who is preparing to fight them. In this is a great reward and lofty virtue to sign up. May Allah Jalla Jalaluhu's mercy be on you. With Salman ibn Rabi'a al-Bahili, people began to sign up, and it was less than 3 days before an army of 8,000 men walked out of Kufa. They marched until they entered the Byzantine land with the army of Syria. Habib ibn Maslama ibn Khalid al-Fihri led the Syrian troops, while Salman ibn Rabia al-Bahili led the army of Kufa. They raided the Byzantine lands, taking as many prisoners and as much booty as they could. They also opened numerous strongholds for the Muslimin. And narrator states the following about the jihadin expeditions of Al-Walid. I saw Ash-Shaiba sitting with Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Al-Walid ibn Uqba. Muhammad mentioned the expedition of Muslima ibn Abdul Malik, and Ashayba said, if only you had seen Al-Walid in his expedition and rule. He used to carry out expeditions and conquests until he had reached such and such a place. He never fell short in this, and nobody accused him of that until he was dismissed. 11.3 Sa'id ibn al-As and the invasion of Tabaristan in 30 years after the Hijriya. In 30 years after the Hijriya, Sa'id ibn al-As set out with his troops from Kufa heading for Khorasan. He was accompanied by Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman and some other companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein were there as well, the grandsons of Rasul alayhi salatu wasallam, as well as Abdullah ibn al-Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar, and Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, and Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr. At the same time, Abdullah ibn Amr had set out from Basra. He reached Khorasan before Sa'id did, and he went to Abrashar. When Sa'id heard that Abdullah ibn Amir had gone to Abrashar, so he went to Qawmais, whose people had made a treaty with Hudayfa after Nahavand battle. He then arrived at Gorgan, whose people made peace with him for 20,000 dinars. After that, he went to Tamisa, which was a part of Tabaristan. Gorgan, a city on the coast by the border of Gorgan. Its people fought against him. Sa'id asked Hudayfa how Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam had prayed in the prayer of peril, and then he prayed it as he was instructed while fighting was going on. That day Sa'id struck a man on the shoulder, such that his sword came out from under his elbow. When he beseeched them, they asked for safety. He promised that he would not kill a man from them. When they opened the fortress, he went inside and killed them all except the man he had promised to spare. The Muslim army took everything that was inside the fortress. When Sa'id entered to Kufa, Ka'b ibn Ju'ayl praised him, saying, a great youth he was when Gilan wandered to him when they came forth from Dastaba and Abahra, no Sa'id of goodness shoulder. My mount kneel down, then surely I would hate for it to be slaughtered. You were a lion of the den on the day of the trail, who left the lions of the jungle and came to the desert, leading what no one before you has ever led. 80,000 men with and without an army. 80,000 men with and without an army. 11.4 Yazdagir, the king of Persia, flees to Khorasan. Ibn Amir came to Basra first and then went on to Persia, which he conquered. In 30 years after the Hijriya, Yazdagir fled from Wujuz, which was in Ardashir, Khura. Amir sent Mujashi ibn Mas'ud as-Sulami to pursue him. He followed him to Karman and entered Shijan with his troops. Yazdagir continued his flight to Khorasan. He was killed in the 31 years after the Hijriya, though there are conflicting reports about the factors leading to his death. 11.5 The conquest of Abdullah ibn Amir in 31 years after the Hijriya. During this year, Abdullah ibn Amir went to Khorasan, where he conquered Abrashah, Tuz, Biward, and Nisa. When he got to Sarkaz, he had made a treaty there with the people of Merv. The expedition of Bab and Balanjar in 32 years after the Hijriya. This happened when Uthman bin Affan wrote to Sa'id ibn al-As and instructed him to send Salman in order to invade Bab. To Abdurrahman ibn Rabi'a, who was the commander in Bab, he wrote, repletion has made fighting heavy on many of our people, so slow down and do not expose the Muslimin to danger, for I am afraid that there will be trouble for them. This does not discourage Abdurrahman from his goal, though, and he did not leave Balanjar alone. He set out in the 9th of Uthman's Khalifa. Once they had reached Balanjar, they besieged it and set up catapults and other similar war machines around it. Anyone who came cross was either hurt or killed, and people fled. Inshallah, we will stop here on page number 258. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسم ربك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.